It was another quiet night at the office. No phone calls, no messages, nothing but junk mail and overdue bills to keep me company. Seems nobody wants to hire a real private dick anymore, a professional like me. A guy who does the detective work nobody else wants to do. A guy who wears hats and walks around in a black and white world. I began contemplating a more profitable line of work, like politics.
We are the show you want to know. It's time to talk to you.
All right, folks. Good afternoon and welcome to the Monday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. April 7th already. All right, as we're moving along here. You can join the conversation over the next hour at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. Of course, our text line is up and running at 617-297-8388. If you text that like you do anyone else, it appears on the screen here in the studio in real time. We try to work it into the conversation. Of course, you can listen to the station 24/7 on the TuneIn app. We do stream there live all the time, just like other thousands of other stations do. If you don't have it, simple to download it on your device. Do me a favor when you punch in WCRN, hit the like button. We know you're there, and then we're easy to find. You can tell Alexa to play WCRN. She'll do that as well. No questions asked. Now, I personally stream to the station Facebook page, my Facebook page, which you can follow at Joe Mangi Show, M-A-N-G-I, Joe Mangi Show, and X, Twitch TV, and LinkedIn profile, but also Rumble in real time. So you can always go to the Joe Mangiacotti channel on Rumble and watch past shows and the current show airing live. Today, back at HQ, behind the glass, he's flying the board, and we'll get you into the studio for two-way talking conversation. There you go at 508-871-7000. Obviously, a loaded show ahead. We always have to figure out what we're going to talk about. If you've ever, if you listened at all to my shows over the years, I have a real thing about election fraud, because it just simply, if our elections don't have integrity, the whole system breaks down. It just doesn't work, folks. It's based on that. Free elections and accurate elections, meaning only those entitled to vote get to vote. So it's always been just a pet peeve, a thing, and I can't even fathom when someone opposite of these feelings says something along the lines of, well, it's not that much. It's not really a lot happening. Oh, it doesn't matter. Any election fraud is just unacceptable. So we have a lot of headlines this week. Some of them outrageous and disturbing, right? In some cases, downright unbelievable. But you know what? Around here, we do one thing the media refuses to do. We try to break down the stuff with some facts and clarity, some common sense to it. Hey, 40 times, right? 40 times. In America, 40 apparently is an acceptable number of times to, get kicked out of the country. A Mexican national named Julian Estrada Garcia, with a rap sheet longer than a CVS receipt, he was deported from the United States for the 40th time. That's not a typo or mistake, not 14, but 40. He's got convictions for DUI, drugs, 4 separate charges for illegal entry, or I should say re-entry, into the U.S. This guy wasn't slipping over the border for a better life. He was gaming the system, committing crimes, thumbing his nose at our laws, and yet we keep letting him in. This, my friends, is the real cost of open border policies. It's not rhetorical. It's not rhetoric. It's not partisan. It's right there in front of us. This is about public safety, plain and simple. And speaking of the rule of law being twisted beyond recognition, fortunately, we have Congressman Andy Biggs, who has never been afraid to, shake it up in D.C. a little bit. Well, he's filed a bombshell resolution to remove sitting federal judge James Bosberg, right, without going through the usual 2/3 Senate vote. That's a pretty bold move. Unprecedented even. Maybe. But is it unconstitutional? Not necessarily. Biggs says that Bosberg has repeatedly abused his position, undermined President Trump's executive authority, and block efforts to deport violent foreign gang members under the Enemies Act. Think about that. You've got the President of the United States lawfully invoking the 1798 law to protect American citizens from known violent operatives. That's why it was put there. Think about the year it went into effect. And a rogue judge steps in and says, nope, not on my watch. Now, that's not justice. That's not independence. That's not balance of power. That's activism in a robe, guys. And Biggs is saying enough is enough on this. He's invoking the good behavior clause under Article 3, Section 1 of the Constitution, arguing that judges who no longer act in good behavior can be removed by a simple majority in Congress, just like they were confirmed. Now, I know, legal scholars are already screaming constitutional crisis. But I ask you, who is really creating this crisis, guys? Is it Congress doing its job, or is it unelected judges overstepping their bounds, overstepping the scope of their authority, and interfering with national security? We'll unpack some of this, but I do want your thoughts because this affects every single American. Also, we'll talk about ICE's latest operation in Houston, where this Estrada Garcia was finally rounded up alongside over 170 illegals, many with serious criminal records. Why ICE is now maxed out on detention space. Trump even suggested the good old-fashioned American criminals who are multiple, repeaters, they might be able to be housed in foreign jails as a subcontract. Talk about the heads exploding. And how Trump's administration renewed enforcement push to both working and being resisted at every turn. Well, we'll talk about how we got here. How do we turn this tide? We've got constitutional questions, legal power struggles, executive authority, border security, of course, the one thing you won't hear on networks, the truth, backed by a little reason here. Folks, I'll say it again, this show's isn't about left or right. It's about the right and wrong of things. If that makes you uncomfortable, you probably don't want to be here. But if you're here for the real talk with real respect and a little fire, then settle in on this. Phone lines are open at 508-871-7000. Again, that's 508-871-7000. That's how you join the conversation. So we got the Biggs thing and all that. We've got, by the way, I want to go on the Tesla thing for a second. A couple in D.C. have been arrested. It's about time, because this is the other thing. And I've talked about it before. I brought it up Sunday's remote broadcast with Peter Blute when we were broadcasting from Route 12 Pickle. A former bureaucrat and a green NGO executive have been charged for vandalizing a Tesla car. This is just beyond acceptable behavior, guys. And people have got to actually go to jail. They've got to go through the process, the humiliation, the strip search, the intake, sleeping in the 9x12. This is unacceptable. It makes no sense to begin with at all. It makes no sense. And now we have a case, because this is mostly peaceful, right? A rock smashed into a Tesla, seriously injuring a pregnant passenger. This has gone way too far. When ideology turns violent, Tesla terror, you just don't have the right to vandalize and destroy private property like that. It's a fundamental, basic right in law. I said this before on the show, guys. Something's going to go too far. They're going to throw one of these Molotov cocktails into a Tesla with somebody in it. And now somebody has put a rock through the window of a car with a pregnant woman in it. This is going from protest to peril. The rock smashed through the Tesla windshield. This is in Vancouver, by the way, injuring a pregnant woman in the passenger seat. Now, the car just happened to be a Tesla. So they'll have to establish, but it's a Tesla. A rock goes through the windshield. And now, which now targeted by left-wing extremists, right? So we know what they're doing to the Teslas. And somehow they think this is justified or connected in that this addresses Musk's role in Doge. This isn't just property damage. This is assault with a deadly object, guys. A mother and her unborn child could have been seriously injured or died. Sure, it hasn't been confirmed that that was the target, but rocks don't fly by themselves, and it's a Tesla. So let the system run its course. But anyone with common sense, and I've been saying this on my show here, someone's going to get hurt. One of these acts of stupidity and juvenile behavior is going to cause serious injury to somebody. This is part of the growing pattern of ideologically driven violence targeting Tesla, its dealerships, its employees, because Musk had the audacity to challenge bloated federal bureaucracy. Why is it every time something like this happens, the media runs to downplay it or bury it? Can you imagine for a second if the roles were reversed and people with the MAGA hats were doing this? It would be on CNN 24/7, guys. If the political roles were reversed, this was the mega supporter throwing a rock, say, at a Prius, driven by a progressive activist, you'd be hearing about it for weeks on end. So where's the outrage for those constantly warn about right-wing extremism? When you hurl a rock at a moving vehicle, that's not a protest. That's attempted murder. Cut and dry. Leftist radicals have torched Tesla dealerships, they've vandalized vehicles, and now injured an innocent woman. There's no mostly peaceful excuse. Lives are, in fact, at stake here. Here in the U.S., under Attorney Pam Bondi and FBI Director Kash Patel, there is some movement finally there. One arsonist in Vegas has already been arrested for throwing a Molotov cocktail at a Tesla dealership. Go Google that and check this kid's picture out. How do you think he's going to do in prison? It's time for these people to learn, fool around, find out. You know how that goes. FAFO. As the writer said, I was extremely unhappy with the Biden-Harris regime. You know what I didn't do? Attack innocent people. There are no nonviolent, constructive ways to fight back. Speak up, write, vote, get involved, but don't resort to violence. What's happening now is about justice or civil rights. It's ideological terrorism, folks. But we have to take our first break here on the Monday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show at AM 830 WCRN. We'll go right to the phones when we come back. So hold on, Mark. Back to and 10, folks.
Looking for guidance as you face a future on Social Security? It's hard to figure out on your own. The MedicareAdvisors.com is a completely independent insurance agency specializing in Medicare insurance planning. We work with the top insurance companies so we can offer our clients the best coverage for them. We design plans with a focus on low costs, which we combine with personalized insurance advice aimed at helping our clients make better informed decisions. Russ Swallow is a certified senior advisor and a licensed insurance advisor. He's been helping clients with their health insurance needs since 1970. And after a failed attempt at retirement, he created the Medicare Advisors in 2014. Russ concluded that since Medicare is health insurance, he might as well put his almost experience to good use, as 75,000 people reach age 65 in Massachusetts every year, and they can use some help. Call Russ today at 508-831-080. It is years of personal experience to work for you as you try to unravel the complexities of Social Security.
Looking for a fuel and food stop that truly stands out? Experience the Yatco difference. At Yatco, we're dedicated to bringing you the best customer service, the highest quality products, and a commitment to making your life on the go easier. From top quality fuel to freshly stocked snacks and essentials, Yatco has you covered. Yatco has 15 convenient locations across central Massachusetts, and now our newest spot at 75 Quonsigamut Ave in Worcester. For Yatco rewards, simply download the Yatco app and sign up. Friendly, clean, local, and always convenient. Make Yatco your favorite food and fuel stop. Stop by Yatco food and fuel stations today and experience the Yatco difference. Yatco, where every stop keeps you going.
All right, folks, welcome back here to the second segment on the Monday afternoon edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. Reminding you can join the conversation at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. Gets into the studio for two-way talk and conversation. Hey, don't forget, if you'd like to watch and listen, you can do that on X, Facebook, Twitch TV, LinkedIn profile, and Rumble. Joe Mangi Show. That's how you follow me on my handle. Let's go to the phones. Mark has been waiting patiently. Hey, Mark, what say you?
I hear it. This mainstream media, like I'll use for an example, the Boston media, mainstream media. How in the hell people listen and actually believe the crap that they put out on the air every day astounds me, especially when you live in a state of Massachusetts who touts themselves as, the most highly educated per capita, and look at the people they put into office. Now,
Uh-oh. I don't know what just happened there, but I lost the feed. Hold on. We'll check that. We're going to see if we can reconnect that. I don't know what went on there, but I lost the feed there for a second, so I don't know if we can get that back. Mark, Ted, I don't know if we what happened with that, but if we could see if we could get that. I'm not sure what went on there. Well, we'll check into that. All right, folks. Ted, let me know. Are we still okay? I don't know what's going on there, folks. It looks like I should be getting a signal there, and I don't know what's going on with that. And we'll try something. Sorry about the technical difficulties that happen sometimes. And I'm not sure why that is happening. But I'm going to disconnect and reconnect, and we'll check that out. And there we go. All right. Ted, do you got me back at the station? Okay. Let me see if I can fix this here, folks. My apologies on this, but it went dead on my end. So I don't know what the sound difference is or what's going on here. Okay. Okay, got it. Thanks, Ted. They can hear me here, but I can't hear the call, so we'll have to check it in the break. Point is, and I apologize for that. I don't know what happened there. The point is The Rock in that case an attack? We're talking about that went through the windshield in Vancouver. Should violent protesters be treated as domestic terrorists? And Elon Musk being unfairly targeted or simply trying to make government more efficient? This is ridiculous. But the silence in the face of violence, that's just it can't be permitted. It's time for real accountability for both the criminals and the media that enables them to do this. All right. And I was talking about, or I mentioned at the opening about Representative Biggs in the solution here, or resolution concerning Boasberg. So Congressman Andy Biggs, he's kind of lit a political fire here because he introduced this very bold resolution to remove a federal judge without going through the normal. So normally in impeachment and process, you need 2/3 of the Senate vote for an impeachment process, right? Biggs says Boasberg violated the Constitution's good behavior clause. So our founding fathers were wise enough, as they were in so many things, to be sure to put some clauses in there to address, again, remember, our founding fathers were very concerned with tyranny and the overreach of power, in the erosion or even the absence of individual freedoms and rights. So he's saying, look, instead of a full impeachment here, Biggs wants to invoke Article 3, Section 1 of the Constitution. And this is asserting that judges who serve under good behavior can be removed by a simple majority in Congress. In that Boasberg's behavior doesn't fall within a reasonable, prudent person's idea of good behavior. That he is interfering with Trump and the Trump administration. Boasberg repeatedly blocked remember March 15th, the order to deport violent Venezuelan gang members, Tren de Aragua, under the Alien Enemies Act, a national security directive. And it may be over 200 years old, but it has been used in the 20th century, and I believe once in the 2000s. And this is undermining executive power. Instead of supporting the president's role in defending America, Boasberg allegedly interfered for political reasons, I should say. And Biggs wants a resolution to this. So do a lot of members of Congress. This is affecting national security. It really is. Instead of supporting the president's role in defending America, Boasberg has interfered for political reasons. His past behavior also shows misconduct as a FISA court judge. Let's not forget his role in that. He also had failure to disclose payments from outside sources. You remember, just the appearance, everyone in these positions, elected political positions, judges, appointed or elected, are supposed to even avoid the appearance of impropriety, misconduct. And he also has misuse of judicial discretion for partisan influence. Just how he got this case again is also in question, folks. That's just statistically impossible for the same judges to keep getting anything about Trump. Not when there's supposed to be a pool type of thing with random assignment, on the docket. But I want to go back to this good behavior clause. Article 3, Section 2 states that judges shall hold their offices during good behavior. Shall hold their office if they're behaving right. So Biggs argues this gives Congress a separate removal mechanism for impeachment, and you don't have to go through the 2/3 Senate. But what's the distinction here? There is a key distinction. Impeachment is for treason, bribery, or high crimes. But bad behavior can warrant removal by legislative action. Just as judges are appointed, they can be removed. So you have judicial activism versus the executive authority. This isn't just about one judge. It's about whether activist judges can override a sitting president's constitutional authority, especially on foreign policy and national security. Trump invoked the centuries-old 1798 Aliens Enemy Act to remove foreign gang threats. Blocking that isn't a legal dispute. It's a power struggle here, folks. So Biggs has given us a warning. Congress has to stand firm against judges who are no longer acting with good behavior, but instead functioning as partisan operatives in robes. And we have to look at the front end of things too, right? We have to look at these judges that are getting appointed and getting confirmed. And you got to go back to, the Senate for a lot of this. Maybe we should be asking more in-depth questions and screening a little bit more on the front end, so we're not dealing with these activist judges in the back end of judicial appointments too. So is this action by Bosberg and other judges political strategy or constitutional crisis? Is this a necessary check on an overreaching judiciary or a dangerous precedent that would be set? I'm going to quote Biggs. He says, "We cannot stand by while activist judges impose their own political agenda on the American people," unquote. Because they weren't elected, they're appointed, and they're supposed to be guided by statute and constitution. The resolution challenges the balance of power, but some legal scholars will argue it could trigger a constitutional meltdown. So what happens next? It's kind of uncharted territory here, right? If this gains traction in the House, it could lead to major legal battle, possibly ending up before SCOTUS. Democrats are sure to resist, but the resolution doesn't rely on a 2/3 Senate vote here. And Trump supporters' message would be stop rogue judges from sabotaging a president's ability to protect the country. So a final thought on this, folks, is this is more than a legal argument. It's about who really runs the country. Is it the elected president or unelected judges? In all of these arguments that we are presented with, challenges to authority, it's not, remember, this isn't a challenge to Donald Trump. It's to challenge to the powers of the office he happens to hold right now, which is the presidency. And anything that is done today means it's there for future office holders, because it's against the office, not the man in the office. And I think, especially on the left, they forget that their hatred for Trump is so big that it's the office that you're attacking, which someday maybe could be held by a Democrat again. Do you believe judges should be removed for bad behavior without impeachment, or is this a step too far? Let us know. 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. We got to take our mid-show break here on the Monday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show. We'll be back on the other side, folks, so stick with us. And we're not going to have any other music on this side going out.
Insurance advisor. He's been helping clients with their health insurance needs since 1970. And after a failed attempt at retirement, he created the Medicare Advisors in 2014. Russ concluded that since Medicare is health insurance, he might as well put his almost 50 years of health insurance experience to good use, as 75,000 people reach age 65 in Massachusetts every year, and they can use some help. Call Russ today at 508-831-0805. Put his years of personal experience to work for you as you try to unravel the complexities of Social Security.
All right, folks, welcome back to the second half of the Monday edition. Sorry about that glitch. I've got the sound coming back on this side, so we're good to go. And again, you can join the conversation at 508-871-7000. Marco, sorry about that. I lost your my ability to hear you at that point, so feel free to give a call back. That's 508-871-7000. Let's go to the phones. Ken is waiting patiently. Hey, Ken, what say you? Ooh.
Yeah, I guess your wires are crossed. Hello?
Yeah, yep. I thought there was a delay. Sorry, I can hear you fine.
You can hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know in Mike's shows there was an issue where we couldn't hear Mike, but we could hear the call. So it's weird.
We'll
There's
get the
something
engineer on
happening.
it. Yeah, sorry about that. What's up? What's on your mind?
But, well, on your topic, as far as how can a judge be ousted? We'll use that word. And, as you read, there is bad behavior clause. Interestingly, I happened to come across a story where this isn't all that uncommon at the local level. So, like, literally, there was a story of a woman who I didn't even recall exactly what she did. She might have been drunk and did something. But anyway, she's handcuffed. And, the next day, boom, she's out as a judge for bad behavior. Well,
Yeah.
that kind of makes sense. That
Yeah.
Well,
what's interesting in article in that part of the Constitution, Ken, it says they may be a judge. They may be able to sit as a judge as long as they have good behavior, which is another way of saying if you have bad behavior, you can't sit as a judge. So the way that the verbiage in the Constitution is a judge may sit and serve for good behavior. So Biggs is arguing, well, that would mean they're not allowed to sit if they have bad behavior. I'm just drawing the distinction here between, yeah. But I see where Biggs is saying, let's go on this one.
Yeah, and I've heard it from more than just Biggs. Others have been commenting about, this is a possibility. And I gave the example where it's actually happening at the local level.
Mm-hmm.
And it literally is, I think the distinction is it leaves open, it could be temporary removal. Whereas, for instance, an impeachment, which has the higher threshold of 2/3 of the Senate, is permanent removal.
And remember, impeachment is usually reserved for those very like bribery and traitors and like really bad stuff. Right. I mean, that's the key.
The last one is open-ended, high crimes and misdemeanor. So literally,
that's true.
They didn't have anything on the serious stuff on Trump, and they did it twice to him. They just said, "Hey, this is a political act. We can do whatever. We can define high crimes and misdemeanors any way we want." So that's the reality.
Yeah.
The distinctions between the political branches and the judicial branches, and unfortunately, there are too many who don't appreciate there's separation of powers, folks. And if we don't abide by separation of powers, this thing can unravel fast. And that's unfortunately what we could be headed to with all that's going on.
Yeah. Which is why things like election fraud bothers me so much, Ken, because if you can mess with the elections, nothing means anything. Right. If the voting process can be tampered with, that means people are being installed in positions. They're not being elected in positions. That's why election fraud has always bothered the crap out of me, and that we should pay more attention to it because of this. And then the other part of this is, as I was saying before we went to the call to you, is we've got to pay more attention on the front end of these things. Now, I know presidents and Trump made this mistake in the first term. He trusted too much in people that were there. And a lot of these U.S. attorneys, he just reappointed them because, the senators from the state said, hey, they've been there for a while. You should just redo it. Because technically, when a new president comes in, all these people, they submit their resignations. It's 99% of the time, it's a formality, right? They submit their resignations and the new administration reappoints them, and that's that. But we've got to pay more attention, and that means the members of Congress have got to do a better job in vetting some of these people and confirming them on these district judge levels.
But let's be serious, what it has degenerated into, particularly the last 20 to 30 years. Actually, it goes all the way back to Clarence Thomas, or I should say Fork. Fork is where we really run on the fork in the road, and the left went hell-bent on politicizing whoever it is that got on the Supreme Court, and then eventually all the other courts below them, where they weren't seeking honorable. Even though we throw around that word, the honorable judge this, honorable, and yet the whole process of choosing them, the way they've acted, everything has just devolved. And is it any surprise that these are the consequences?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think the only appropriate thing, given it's devolved so badly, you can't just snap your fingers and go back to the way it was 50, 60 years ago. And actually, the way I say 50, 60, the Supreme Court justices have been a battle going right back to the beginning. If you read the history, that this isn't all that surprising. And how did we, for instance, how did we get the Civil War? A big reason was the Dred Scott decision, which was an abomination that is viewed as such by both sides.
Exactly. Yeah,
So,
you got a good point on that. Yeah.
That there's so many things that, we just take for granted on the judicial matter. I mean, and there's all sorts of shenanigans going on in Massachusetts where all the stories we hear about the local judges, they get an illegal in front of them and they scoot them out the back door. Quick,
Judge
go.
Shelley Josephs, right? She was actually
so.
headed for jail, and Obama stopped that. He should have let it. See, when you have people, and I have this issue with the Tesla situation too. These people, like this couple in New York, or I forget where they are. Was it? Yeah, I think it's New York, and the Jamoke out there in Nevada. Look, these people have got to have consequences, and I think that's a 30 or 60 or 90 days in the county lockup. And until somebody, and they realize that this isn't okay, just because you feel you're right, that they're so arrogant in that they're right and their argument is so superior that the law doesn't apply to them. They have to be shown it actually does, because this isn't a protest. This is a crime. This is vandalism. Now you have this poor woman. Go check the story out online, folks. It's a pretty good sized rock. And she's a pregnant woman in Tesla. And I said this probably not more than 2 weeks ago, within the last week or so, that somebody's going to get hurt because somebody's going to do something to a Tesla, and they're either not going to realize or they don't care that somebody's in the Tesla. And they're going to throw the Molotov cocktail, or in this case, a rock through the windshield. And somebody's going to get seriously hurt, and God forbid, worse than that. So there has to be serious consequences for these serious bad acts. And until there is, it's not really going to stop, because Ken, they don't really think what they're doing is bad. It's the same reason that they can suspend the Constitution and the decorum of law in normal court proceedings to go after Trump, because in their mind, Trump is so bad, right? Hitler again. Hitler bad, you're justified in all of this. For whatever reason, they've gotten to that Elon Musk is so bad that they're going after an inanimate object that has nothing to do with them anymore, right? These cars were bought sometimes many years beforehand. So they have nothing to do with him today. It doesn't affect him now. Yeah, you can argue in the long run it's going to affect the stock and all that. But it doesn't. He only owns about 12.5% of Tesla, by the way. So you're really hurting all those other stockholders. And what about all of those people, the 130,000 people who are working in the factories and dealerships? That's who you're hurting, folks.
Well, you're assuming all that these people have thought that through. So my first question is
No, I'm not assuming they have. That's my point. Is they're ignorant. They're idiots.
The whole point.
They're idiots.
And it's not about they have gotten to a mindset where thinking anything doesn't matter. They emote and they do what their crowd wants them to do. So here's my question: is this woman who's pregnant that had a window smashed in? What jurisdiction was that?
Vancouver.
Oh, it's just as bad as our
Yeah.
most lefty
Yeah.
states. So this person, whoever did it, has the green light, knowing full well there aren't going to be consequences because
There you go.
the judge has been politicized. And
Right.
don't
And that's my
forget
point.
all about
It goes back to no consequences. They've been, they've gotten the dog whistle that this is what we do now, and that you're not going to get in trouble if you go follow out our, down low orders here. And that's what's going on. They don't think the consequences. I need these people to get sentenced 30, 60, 90 days. I don't care, 180 days in county lockup, but they need to understand what they're doing is a real crime. It's not acceptable. It's so far removed from protest. I mean, you're not even in the same ballpark. And this kid out here in Nevada, I think he's actually from California, and he went all the way to Nevada for this, bombing the Tesla dealership. He's like 21 and he's a fragile looking guy. He's not going to do well in prison, right? He's not going to do well in prison, Mark. I mean, Ken, you know that. Final thought before I have to let you go.
Hey, Joe, you're just not focused on the right people to put in jail. While in France, they get it all figured out. You're a leading right wing.
Oh, yeah.
candidate.
Magical charges of embezzlement came out all of a sudden. Yeah, I got it. Where'd we see that before? All right, Mark, thank you for the call. Always appreciate it. All right, folks, 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. That's 508-871-7000. Mark is back on. If I take you now, you're going to have like 40 seconds, Mark. So if you could hold on through the break, we'll go right to the phones. When we come back on the other side, we'll take you up there. And again, you can join the conversation at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000 to get into the conversation. So I do want to talk about, again, election interference, election fraud. We'll do this after the call. We'll come back with Mark, and then we're going to get into this because 3 Pennsylvania officials plead guilty to election fraud, and 2 are still in office. 2 are still in office. Guys, I know, right? It bothers me that we tolerate election fraud on any level. You get that if we allow it and it happens, the entire system that we've been living under and we've been told works and it's the best one on the planet is worthless. It depends on free elections and interference-free elections, folks. 508-871-7000. Stick with us. We'll be back for the third and final segment on the Monday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. Back in 2 in 10.
Looking for guidance as you face a future on Social Security? It's hard to figure out on your own. But MedicareAdvisors.com is a completely independent insurance agency specializing in Medicare insurance planning. We work with the top insurance companies so we can offer our clients the best coverage for them. We design plans with a focus on low costs, which we combine with personalized insurance advice aimed at helping our clients make better informed decisions. Russ Swallow is a certified senior advisor and a licensed insurance advisor. He's been helping clients with their health insurance needs since 1970. And after a failed attempt at retirement, he created the Medicare Advisors in 2014. Russ concluded that since Medicare is health insurance, he might as well put his almost 50 years of health insurance experience to good use, as 75,000 people reach age 65 in Massachusetts every year, and they can use some help. Call Russ today at 508-831-0805. Put his years of personal experience to work for you as you try to unravel the complexities of Social Security.
Fuller Park is the place to play. Best ballpark in AAA.
And the Woo Sox come back. They walk it off.
With a bumper crop of red-hot Red Sox prospects on the way, don't miss a moment. Get your tickets today.
In the air to deep left center field. Back into the gap. This ball is gone.
Visit WooSox.com or call 508-500-8888 to see the Woo Sox play in April and May.
Ziti's Italia Ristorante is where to make Mother's Day a lasting memory. Show your mother that you understand. You finally understand. A mother's love is just like a fine meal prepared by an authentic Italian trattoria. Ziti's menu will selection of ethereal Epicurean delights. Come eat at Ziti's restaurant on Route 9 East in Westboro. Your mother will love it. Make it Mother's Day at Ziti's Italian Ristorante, Route 9 East in Westboro.
All right. Welcome back to the fourth and final segment here on the Monday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show at AM 830 WCRN, Radio Central, 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Let me go right to the phones because Mark has been waiting patiently. Hey, sorry about that, Mark. I lost the sound from the station. My apologies. What say you?
You know, we're in a trade war with China right now, whether people believe it or not. Well, part of it is the tariffs included into this trade war. If they want a pissing contest with the United States in a trade war, I guarantee you China's going to lose because we're their number one consumer of all their Chinese junk. All right? Half of what they produce is junk. Ask anybody who's ever worked on any type of equipment or anything else that they make. It either falls apart in a year and a half or it spends more time in a shop than it does out in the field. All right? That being said, who's going to make up the difference? Sub-Sahara Africa, where the average person, if they're lucky enough to have a job, makes $4,000 a year, American. Maybe the Middle East. Or maybe Indonesia. No, nobody's going to make up the difference of what they're going to lose, which is at least half of their gross domestic product in the form of exports. They're going to lose them all. They're going to come to the table, or they're going to go to war with us. Let me finish, please.
Yep.
They're going to go to war with us, and I got news for them. You're going to get your butts kicked in a war, too, with the United States.
Yeah. Mark, absolutely. China is their economy is.
Right.
Thank you very much, Mark. I appreciate the call. Always a good call. Yes, China, for the record, China's economy is extremely fragile. I know you don't hear that a lot. You don't see it in the media. They're very fragile right now. There is no way, and I've said this before, people, when it gets to these trade wars or the tariff situation, again, we're not putting one across the bow. These are just reciprocal. Right, we can't be taking we can't be having a 2.5% tariff coming in, but they're doing 20, 30, sometimes 100% tariff of our products going out. We are the United States of America, the largest consumer on the planet of $27 trillion every year. This is the behemoth that everybody wants to trade with, and I've said this before. I'm standing by this that. Anyone who wants to play this chicken game on the tariff thing with Trump is going to lose spectacularly. They can't afford to do it for any length of time. We may have some short-term pain in there, but again, remember the tariffs only hit these products coming in. You know how you avoid them? Don't buy those products. Buy American-made or buy from another country that doesn't have it. That's the whole point. And this isn't new. Donald Trump has talked about this since the 90s of how much the United States have been taken advantage, how much we, the taxpayers, have been funding other governments through the heavy tariffs they've placed on American products. So they're not going to be able to withstand this, and I understand that, and yes, we are. But this has been a situation where we've been at this trade war with China and we haven't done it. And it's not just the tariffs, Mark, as you were talking, because, there's the whole issue of intellectual property that they have systematically infiltrated the United States within our education system, even government system, and have stolen. And through espionage, corporate espionage has taken tons of intellectual property from the United States. I was just reading about there's these GNC, which I did not know till very recently, is owned by Chinese government. The GNC nutrition or whatever, the you get the powder and the protein and all that health stuff. And they've got something like 4 GNCs at Fort Bragg, some on the base. And you compound that with these, what they call Chinese police stations, which are just spy outposts, where they control Chinese American citizens through their family back home. And when they talk about these companies, and all of our companies who do business in China, and all of the China, and this goes to ByteDance, right, TikTok and all that, you, to be able to do business or be a business in China or to do business with China, part of the understanding and agreement is that the CCP has access to everything in your corporate, your books, your vendors, your what you're making, where is the money, all of that. So understand all that, folks. All right. Good call, Mark. 508-871-7000. If you'd like to join the conversation, you can do that for the remainder of the hour. But I want to talk about this election fraud in Pennsylvania, where 3 Pennsylvania officials have pleaded guilty. Now, 2 of them are still in office. Election fraud in broad daylight, folks, and still in office. So Melbourne's dirty election, this is certainly a blueprint for cheating. Proof positive, this is why voter ID and in-person voting matters. I really hope we put together or put to bed this any kind of thought or argument that you can't ask for voter ID. That's too difficult. And that, my friends, is one of the racist things you can say. Because this is what the left is trying to tell you, is by asking for voter ID, that's racist because in their minds, minorities or black people or brown people don't have the wherewithal to get an ID or to maintain an ID like every other American does. How racist is that? It's extremely, if you didn't get the point. So election fraud is real. It always has been real. 3 elected Democrat officials, Melbourne, Pennsylvania, pleaded guilty to deliberate multi-step election fraud scheme. They used out-of-town IDs, forged registrations, and stolen identities to rig the 21 mayoral election, and they still lost, by the way. So election integrity experts have long warned about this exact kind of abuse. This includes me. I've been talking and warning us about this all the time, and we're told, stop it, it's right-wing theories and conspiracy theories, and you're a nut job and this and that, and then stories break like this. And they said, well, it's not that much. Anytime your argument is, it's not, that's like J.D. Vance with, I'm forgetting the alleged journalist he was talking to about Margaret or something. Anyway, we were talking about the gangs taking over property in Arizona. And she said, well, it's not that many. As J.D. Vance said to her, are you listening to yourself? Not that many. How many, what's the acceptable level of foreign criminal gangs taking over and terrorizing American citizens in their own home? What's the acceptable number for that? I'm just curious what you think in your little mind that is. And this is the same case. Any election fraud is unacceptable. The plan involved changing voter addresses online, ordering mail-in ballots to the mailboxes and addresses they controlled, forging the signatures, then they submit the fake votes. So they used the laxing of the system and the changes in the law that, again, during COVID and pandemic, these changes were made totally illegal because they were just done by governors and secretaries of state, which Constitution clearly says each state legislature can only make the election laws and change them for that matter. So 33 fraudulent ballots were submitted, all for one candidate. Now, imagine what could happen in a larger town or swing state where the margin is tighter. And meanwhile, right, so 2 of the of the guilty people are still sitting on the town council. Let that sink in, guys. As recently as a few days ago, April 4th, Hassan and Ally still hold office in Melbourne despite admitting guilt in federal court. It isn't just corruption, it's a breakdown in accountability here. Mail-in voting, that's the weak link here. The fraudsters exploited Pennsylvania's online voter registration and mail-in ballot system. They had full control from registration to ballot drop-off. This is exactly why photo ID in person voting is so critical to prevent manipulation. Also, paper ballots. It's necessary. We've always had mail-in ballots. We just used to call them absentee ballots. And they were reserved for people maybe who were in the service and they were going to be out of the country, right? They're on deployment. Maybe they're for either handicapped people, elderly people who either can't or don't get out of the house that often. But they're not going anywhere. They existed. You got a hold of your town or city clerk, I won't be able to make it to the poll that day. Either I'm not physically in the state or it's physically difficult for me to physically go vote. Okay, no problem. We know who you are. You've been registered to vote for years. You're fine. We mail the ballot straight to your house. You fill it out. You mail it back through the U.S. Post system. You don't drop it in an unattended box somewhere in the middle of the night. That's stupid on its face value. Okay. And we get it back. We check it. There's a witness that signs it too. We check the ID, or the signature rather, and we apply it on election day. We count it with everything else. It was very simple. Then they started messing with the rules. Georgia, one of the problems Georgia had in 2020 was they turned the sensitivity of the computer recognizing the signature down to almost zero, which meant anything got by the scanner. And then they're accepting absentee ballots days, sometimes 9 days after election, like in Pennsylvania. It's just wrong. It's unacceptable. And it has to be paper ballots. There is not a reason in the world that the counting machine or the computer at the polling place needs to be on the internet. None whatsoever. It's the most simplest of computer systems in the world. It's just a counting box. How many ballots got slid into it? That's all you need to know. How many checked in over there? How many ballots went into this box? They match up, lock and key, back to the clerk. That's going to wrap up the Monday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. My apologies for any glitches today, folks. Back tomorrow afternoon at 1 o'clock on AM 830 WCRN. All right, folks. Joe out. Have a good day.